Okay, so I'm going to introduce us to the next phylum we're looking at, which is Cnidaria, which is a really cool one, and there's two main body shapes that you should be able to recognize. And so one is the polyp shape, that's usually the sessile one, and then one is the medusa one that looks like a floating jellyfish. But they're basically just inversions of each other. So the first organism that you're going to look at that is just a polyp shape is the hydra. And I always say these are kind of like those car dealership wavy in the wind things, because you'll see that they can actually fill with water. They basically take water into their gastrovascular cavity and close their mouth, and then they can move their muscles against that fixed volume. But if you scare them, they'll actually expel all the water and collapse down to the ground. It's actually really neat. So you'll see a slide of one, and these are actually pretty nice slides. You'll even see like little beads alongside the arms, and those are where those nematocysts are. And then you also have a live specimen. And the live specimens have a sort of a greenish tinge. They just have algae inside their bodies, and that varies from year to year and what specimens we get. But we'll also have a picture of a live specimen on Blackboard as well. And these are just kind of fun because you can see them like deflate themselves and inflate themselves again. And sometimes they're upside down, so they'll actually attach their bottom, their foot, or their pedal disc to the meniscus of the water surface. That's like how tiny and lightweight they are, basically. They're pretty much the same. Yeah, they're not much more dense than water. You also have a slide of Abelia. This is a colonial, primarily polyp form. And so you'll see that the feeding hydrants actually just look like tiny hydras that are attached through a central stalk. But you're also supposed to see and label some of the reproductive polyps, and you'll actually see some tiny budding medusa stages in those. And again, these guys have a complex life cycle, which we also talk about in class a little bit. And then for the best example of a big medusa where you can label a lot of the different body parts, you're going to take an Aurelia, and we have both a video and pictures on this. And these are really common, really sort of medium-sized jellyfishes, and they're really thin, so they're see-through. So it's kind of like doing a dissection, except you don't need to cut anything because you can just see through the whole body. And then make sure that you know if you're looking at the bottom or the underside actually has these oral arms, and so on the underside is the feeding mechanism. And we use Aurelia because these guys do not have cnidocytes or nematocysts, which are those stinging cells on their tentacles, because that would really suck because we would get stung. So instead, these are kind of rare for a jellyfish in that they mostly consume algae and not very big things, so algae or zooplankton. And they actually have those nematocysts inside their stomach, which we don't touch because we're not cutting them open. And I think that's primarily it on this lab for the specimens or the photos of just preserved things. Those are just there for you to get an idea of the diversity, and you should be able to pick out, is this animal mostly representative of a polyp form or of a medusa form? Cool.